All right, we're going to get started. Call meeting to order and go.
All right, so the reason I requested this meeting and brought everyone in was, as you all know, we've got a daunting task facing us over the course of the next, really over the course of the next few months, but that task is gonna be stretched out over the period of the next few years. And that task is PFAS remediation and PFAS removal from our source water at Wilson Lake Water Treatment Plant. Cypress Creek is a non-detect, luckily, and then the one well that we still have in operation is a non-detect. So we have no issues with those two sources, but
The wells where killed?
Center Star.
Center Star.
Yes, sir. So, but Wilson Lake is, of course, is on the Tennessee River. That's our source water, and we all know what that consists of. If you've read any type of news lately or watched any of the movies or the documentaries and everything that's associated with PFAS. So over the course of the last few months, Robert and Ryan and I and Will have looked at it from every possible angle and they tried to examine it from every possible angle as far as treatment. What's going to work, what's not going to work, what's it going to cost, all the different things. So we've been to Wilmington, North Carolina, and we got to look at a GAC plant, granular activated carbon plant. We really liked the way the GAC looked. We liked the way it worked. It's a little more, I won't say it's a simpler process, but in my eyes it is a simpler process. And then we've also, last week, I set up a meeting with West Morgan, East Lawrence, and we all went along with some other folks and we toured the West Morgan, East Lawrence plant, which is a reverse osmosis plant. Everyone that I've talked to, and I'll let Robert and Ryan and anybody else that wants to weigh in, of course they're welcome to, but everyone that I've talked to, when I approached them about RO versus GAC, and I'm talking about everybody that I've talked to, says, why you wasted your time with GAC? Why waste the time? Why waste the funds? Why are you doing that? Because we all know April 2029, we have to be at the 4 part per trillion level, the maximum contaminant level. But beyond that, we don't know what they're going to require of us to treat. Microplastics, dioxane, there's a lot of different things that's been mentioned that are certainly possibilities that, and from my point of view, I think RO is the way for us to go. Ryan and I, Ryan's our water plant superintendent. He and I have had several conversations along with Robert, along with Will and everybody else, all of Robert's folks. We tried to really examine this thing from a overall perspective, and we feel like RO is the way for us to go. And I'll throw this out there. Here's the problem with RO versus GAC. Robert and them have put together some numbers for us, and RO is substantially higher. We're thinking probably around $135 million is our estimate. Our estimate on GAC is probably in the $60 to $80 million range.
Capital cost.
Capital cost, yeah, about 80. And then of course you got operation and maintenance on that would increase that cost quite a bit. So I'm here today, and I'll give everybody else an opportunity to speak and weigh in. But I'm here today, and I'll speak for these guys because we've all collectively talked about it, and I'll let them weigh in on their own. But we're here today to make a recommendation that we proceed with reverse osmosis. How we go about doing that, therein lies the problem. All right, first and foremost, and Robert and I talked about this last week, the week before last, ADM is not going to allow us to build an RO plant until we do a pilot study. So I'm here today to ask permission to move forward with a pilot study. Did you get a chance? Have they provided you with any numbers as far as costs?
Not on the cost, but they've got their pilot units in Shelby County right now, and they'll be there till the end of July.
Okay.
So right around the end of July, 1st of August, they worked it out to move them they can move them directly up here to Florence, and I told them to go ahead and get me all the agreements on the pilot equipment, the needs, the power and water and all that type of stuff.
Okay. You got a question?
I do, Tad.
Okay.
You said, everybody says, why would we waste time on GAC?
Mm-hmm.
But what does the data tell us? I don't care what everybody says.
Okay. The data tells us that we can get below the 4 part per trillion threshold. Excuse me. We can get, with GAC, we can meet the regulations that we have to meet by April of 2029. We can accomplish that, but beyond that, we can accomplish much more than that, if that makes sense. We can remove PFAS, but if everything holds true, they don't change the regulations, they don't extend the date, and let's just say they continue to stay at 4 parts per trillion, and we have to be in compliance by April of 2029. We will be good with GAC. We piloted GAC. We've met the numbers and the levels that we need to. The problem with it is what happens after 2029, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of what they decide is next, and how much is it going to cost us.
So you're saying GAC can't evolve to different standards?
Period.
Right.
There's no upgrading the system.
No.
But that is today in 2025. Not to say that by 2029 it could not. We don't know.
Right.
But what you're saying is the technology today doesn't allow that. Should the regulations change?
Yes.
But you're saying, could GAC
Right.
be changed down the road?
I won't say that it can't,
No.
but it's going to be limited, if at all.
We've already pilot tested the GAC at Wilson Lake plant, and what we got out in that pilot study is all we're ever going to get out. There's thousands of these different types of PFAS and PFOAs and PFOSs, and we got the ones that are currently regulated okay, but a lot of the others break right through and come right on through. So, Michelle, like the plant we toured in Wilmington, they spent about 60 million, if I'm not mistaken, on that. And now they're faced with the general public. If you look at their website, the general public's like, well, you mean you spent $60,000, but I still have this in my water.
60 million.
60 million.
So also,
And
okay.
Whereas RO, reverse osmosis, it takes it all out.
So let's say that we went with GAC. Then if we were to go RO, we would have to completely redo the system at that point.
Correct.
Okay, I want to make sure that I understand.
Correct.
So, okay.
Now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You finish your statement.
So there is a caveat with RO. With RO, you permeate, am I correct? Am I saying that correct? Permeate water, which is the water that we would send out to the public for consumption. But then you also have RO reject, which is a heavily concentrated water with all of the PFAS that we're removing.
What do we do with that?
Right now, as of right now, it's not regulated. But that's something else that's coming, okay? There's a few technologies out there, GAC being one of them, that we can use to remove that, and then we can treat it and send it ultimately to the wastewater plant and ultimately back to the Tennessee River. That's not being regulated at this time. That's one of the regulations that I think is going to come. Now, that's not going to be on the drinking water side, that's going to be on the wastewater side. But I think that regulation is coming at some point in the near future. We may even see that regulation, I don't think we will, but we may even see that regulation before we meet the 2029 regulations on drinking water. GAC is one of the technologies that we could use there. There's also some other technologies out there, NBOT and some other ion exchange and some different things that we can use.
That technology is evolving everybody's out there. It's evolving very rapidly, very
Right.
quickly.
And I think that one of my issues with GAC is it will get us to where we need to be as far as removal. It does not remove all of it. And it does not, Robert alluded to, it does not remove some of is it the short chain?
Short chain.
The short chains, which you have long chains and short chain strands I call them strands, I'm not sure that that's the correct terminology, but you have long and short chains of PFAS. And we saw some of the shorts break right through with GAC. We don't have that issue with RO. RO strips it out, removes it completely, and it's kind of like when we met with the officials in Washington a couple of weeks ago. They were course, we were there about funding and trying to state our position, obviously, that we don't feel our ratepayers is responsible for paying for this. I mean, that was the whole point of the meeting, in my opinion. And they stressed some funding mechanisms for us to be able to do this, and we're certainly open to that, but there's, what they mentioned, there's not enough money in them for us to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish. So I kind of basically told them, you know, the genie's out of the bottle. When you think PFAS, PFOA, PFOS, however you want to word it, you think drinking water. People don't think nonstick cookware. They don't think the rain protection, rain protected clothing that you wear has it. They don't think about the hamburger wrappers that have it, because of, you know, we've already let that genie out of the bottle, and you know, you can't put it back up now. So if we go and we say, all right, we're going to borrow $80 million, and we're going to get below the 4 part per trillion threshold, we do accomplish what we have to accomplish, but the public, I'm afraid the public is going to look at it, well, you borrowed $80 million, but we still have this in our water. Now, at a minuscule amount, but we still have it in the water. If we go RO, we remove it completely, we have non-detects, and we don't have that to worry about.
I think the thing that scared, I'm sorry, you were first.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, being that this meeting is gonna be on the internet, will you make it very clear that we are in compliance, this is not isolated to Florence, Alabama, and that our drinking water is perfectly safe?
Our drinking water currently meets or exceeds all the standards that we're required to meet. We meet or exceed all of it today. The other thing that I would like to stress is, but you know, besides the obvious fact that we meet or exceed, is our plan is to continue to meet or exceed all of the maximum contaminant levels that we have to meet. The biggest thing that I want to stress is we got to figure out how to pay for it. You know?
But this is a
And
nationwide.
But this is
nationwide problem.
sorry, and I lost my
Nationwide
train of thought. But this is a nationwide issue that is mandated by the EPA.
And what
That's-
you're
yeah.
saying, Tad, is that the federal government does not have the funding available to provide
Right.
what we need in addition to what every other community is gonna need in order to cover the cost
Yes.
fully for us. Got it.
And I'll say this: there's a lot of local water authorities that we've been told may go belly up because they don't have the funding and they can't get the funding to meet this PFAS removal. So, but this, yeah, that, I had lost my train of thought, but that is the main point that I wanted to bring up is this is a mandate by the EPA. This is not something that we just dreamed up.
Or that our water
Or,
just went
or
bad.
that, or that our water all of a
Right.
sudden went bad.
I just
You
want
know,
the public to know.
yes, this is a mandate that the EPA,
When we were in Washington, you know, we had most shows there, we had Sheffield there, I mean, these are folks. that-
lots of small towns, yes.
Lots of small towns. Environmental Protection Agency was very forthright with us. We've sent them all the documents back since that meeting to them, and they're currently aware.
Right. So I wanted to, that's purpose one of the meeting, is that we wanted to come to you and we wanted to recommend that we move forward with RO,
The pilot study.
the pilot study. And the pilot study we know will work because we have, Robert and them have been performing some pilot studies for another local water authority that uses the same source water as us, and the RO has worked. We just need it done on our water, that way we can show ADEM that we've done it and it works, and then that way when we get ready to move forward, we have that in place and they allow us to continue to do that. But we're not gonna get permitted to put an RO plant, nor should we until we perform the pilot study and show that it works.
What's the timeline on that, Tad?
Okay, are you talking about on the pilot study?
Yes, first.
It's a 12-week pilot. So if we're out in August, that's roughly 3 months.
And time of year, Robert, doesn't matter with rain or anything?
Right.
What's the cost?
That's what we're working on. Robert is gonna get some costs. We thought we might have it by today, because we've actually been working on this now for a couple of weeks to try to get all that stuff put together. So that's purpose number one. We wanna move forward with a pilot study on RO. We know GAC will get us there, but it does not get us, in my eyes, it does not get us long-term.
And you feel confident that RO does?
RO, I'll put it to you like
We
this.
piloted 4 different RO manufacturers so far on Wilson Lake, and all 4 of them reach non-detect.
And it's an evolution though, like it's going to be able to keep up and maintain. That's where I'm going.
Oh,
Everything, all 28, 29 that we monitored for, everything was non-detect.
Basically, RO gets everything.
RO, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to answer your question. I think once you run water through an RO unit, it's no longer conducive to electricity because it strips everything out of the water.
It originated from desalinating brackish or salt water. It'll filter the salt out of salt water.
Yeah.
Some variations of
But
it.
GAC only gets certain things, which right now you gotta get it out.
Right.
And it gets that.
GAC.
But if the government comes in and says, you gotta take out A, B, C, and GAC doesn't do that, then we gotta start
Right.
all over.
You're starting all
So
over.
you're starting all over again.
They're currently regulating 6 forms of PFAS component or types. They originally had 9 on the list, and one of the 3 that they took off the list, we have PFBA. And on the pilot study, it didn't remove any of it. So, you know, the fear would be, two big fears would be that they go back later on and say, okay, we want to add PFBA to the list. We've got a brand new system that's not going to remove it.
Right in the
Or-
beginning, we talked about the SRF
Yeah.
funds, what'd you say they were,
GAC, I'm sorry.
state has about $28 million.
Well, they have different pockets, yes, sir, but the one that we would qualify for I was told has $28 million in it, so, you know, and I jokingly made the statement in Washington that if we were given the whole $28 million, which is for the state, not just for the city of Florence, but if we were given the entire $28 million in that fund, then we would only be $100 million short,
Only.
only. You know, and I said that jokingly, but I think they understood where I was coming from. You know, I mean, this is, and Mark and Heath, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is gonna be the largest water capital project in probably ever in the city of Florence Water Department history.
Oh, yeah,
At
it's
135.
more than twice of our
Right.
current debt.
Right.
So, you said Cypress Creek's non-detect.
Non-detect, correct.
So expanding that plant's not an option?
Okay, so that was one thing that we can talk about. That plant has 16 filters. It's rated at 12 million gallons per day. We can do a high rate study and try to petition ADM and see if we can get that increased from 12 to 16 million gallons per day, which is originally what it was designed for, but there were some complications along the way is the reason we're only permitted at 12. I think it has to do, if I remember correctly, it was E. coli.
It was the E. coli.
E. coli. So, but we can do a high rate study, and I think that's a 90-day process, if I remember correct. I talked to Mark Chapman with ADM at the Rural Water Conference back a month and a half ago, and he said that was a pretty simple process. And if you meet the criteria, then you can get rated at that. And the reason we would want to do that is because we can produce water so much cheaper out of that plant once we get this RO unit put in or get the RO plant. It's not going to be a unit. It's
That
gonna be
still
a
doesn't
plant.
replace the capacity that we're getting at Tennessee River.
Does not, no, sir. It will aid and we can produce water cheaper there, but it will not, either way we go, we've got to have.
So
Wilson
Lake's a 12 million gallon day plant.
Okay.
So you got 12 million. total.
That's correct, yes.
Did we talk about where you were gonna pilot the RO
It'll be on site, it'll be at Wilson Lake.
at Wilson? Cause that's where we did GAC as well. Okay,
Yes.
just checking to see.
Yes, it will be on site there, they will pilot it. Okay, so we've talked about that, that's my recommendation, we move forward, I think all these guys in here will agree with me, we move forward with our pilot. And ultimately, we move forward with doing whatever we've gotta do to get RO installed. Which is probably gonna be, all right, here's the other aspect we can talk about. Regardless of the litigation and all the other things that are associated with this, none of that's gonna be in place for us before we have, this is a year to design and engineer, 2 years to construct. So if we start this year, hopefully, maybe by the first of next year, by January 1 of 26, then we, hopefully, if everything goes well, we will be in good shape come April of 2029. But we can't, what I'm trying to say, and I say all that to say this, we can't delay any further. We've got to make a move on it. We've been a little proactive. There's a lot of water authorities out there that are not in the same situation and at the same point in the process that we are. We're a little ahead of the curve, I think. and we would like to continue to be there. But we've got to make a decision, and we've got to proceed. That brings me to my next point. We have SRF funding that we're eligible for, 22.5, is it 22.5 million? 15 million on, drinking water, 7.5 million on clean water or wastewater. Is that right?
That's right. 14.6 on the drinking water was the next one, the next two loans, and then roughly 7.5, I don't know what that final number is on the wastewater.
Right. We've got to decide if we want to proceed with trying to borrow that money, or if we want to basically bring that phase of our project to a standstill for the time being and shift our focus to PFAS. Mark and Heath can speak more to that, because, you know, we've got to meet our debt coverage. We've got to take all that into consideration, because regardless of what happens over the course of the next few months, we're not miraculously going to come up with $135 million on our own to pay for PFAS. We're going to have to go to the bond market. We're going to have to borrow the money. And that's just the plain and simple. We've examined it from trying to figure out any other avenue that we could possibly go, and that's our only way. And we've got to make a move on that relatively quick, because time is of the essence. Like I said, April 2029. Now there is a chance that the deadline by the new administration in DC will be extended. We've heard that, but we're not banking on that. So we need to. That's the reason I brought it up today. We need to decide if we want to continue with our SRF, which in my opinion, and I think, Mark, I'll let you speak, but I don't think that's possible.
No, I mean, it's, you know, if we borrow the SRF, the annual financing on the 15 or the 14 millionth, another 940,000 debt service a year, and the 7.5 million would be another 465. And I mean, if you want to hear
Those are 20-year notes.
yes, those are 20 years.
Do we have any
If you
debt?
want to hear the PFAS number, I don't know if any of you are ready for that, but that would be about 8.2 million a year.
Do we have any debt we're retiring anytime soon?
No.
I think the last
in the
came
next
off
10 years.
Most current is
2021.
2036.
Did you say 8.2 million?
A year.
8.2 million to finance the 135 million.
At today's interest rate.
Well, that was the rate you had in the thing of 4.5%.
4.5, and we had spoken with some folks about that, and kind of got the term and the interest rate and all that. And that's kind of, and that was what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. It's relatively recent, so that's not, you know, that number's not going to have changed a lot, if any, since then. So yeah, we had a 30-year 4.5% interest rate.
Do you think with technology and all that the price of the RO would decrease any? It's like plasma TV for $5,000. Yeah, I mean, I know it's not.
I
not
think
much,
it.
but
I'll say
there's
this,
a chance of that maybe happening.
Councilman, I think at some point in the future, yes, there's a possibility of that, but over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, I think we're gonna see cost increase, because everybody in the country has gotta meet this mandate. They're all fighting for the same equipment, they're all fighting for the same contractors, they're all fighting for the same money. There's gonna be, that's the reason, like I said, we're a little ahead of the curve, and I would like for the city of Florence to continue to stay ahead of the curve, if at all possible, and maybe beat some of this competition, I'll call it.
We're not the only people advising council or water boards that they can.
Yeah, I'm worried about equipment shortages.
This
Yes.
is contractors.
Well, I mean, we've got lead times on pumps now that are 6 months.
So I think you said this maybe at the council meeting, or what you said at the utility advisory committee. We get water to approximately 99,000 citizens in Lauderdale.
Yes, 98, it's 98,849, if I remember correctly. I've got that number somewhere in there.
We serve West Lauderdale with their drinking water. We serve Chisholm Heights with their drinking water. We serve Green Hill with a portion of their drinking water. We serve East Lauderdale water with a portion of their drinking water.
Which in turn,
We
serves Lexington and
On everything.
Obviously, we
I
serve
mean,
Florence proper as well as Killen and Center Star as our rate cutting rate.
And maybe Roger.
These are the only rates we ever changed.
Well, ultimately, Rogerville's gonna be in big trouble because their wells are contaminated.
Their wells are contaminated with PFAS right now.
so we're working on that project. That continues to be an ever evolving issue, but we're trying to work with them. We had a meeting on that this last week.
We submitted for grant funding for our portion, for y'all's portion.
Yes, yes. And to Robert's point, our portion of that project, we're ready. We're sitting on go as far as that goes. We're just kind of waiting on the town of Rogersville to kind of decide and make up their mind, so. But, so I guess, and I don't know if we need some time to digest this, if y'all need some time to digest this and look at it, but we're gonna have to make a decision relatively quick on the SRF funding. Are we gonna try to get that? In my opinion, I don't think it's possible. I think we need to, and I hate to do it because we're working on galvanized line replacement. We're working on some of our sewer upgrades. We're working on different things that we desperately need, but none of that is mandated.
I don't think you got a choice.
Oh,
Right.
I agree with you 100%.
So
So
the last thing we wanna do is bankrupt the city of
Right.
water. I mean,
right,
Well, I assume our next step is waiting on the cost of the pilot study, correct? So that we can,
that's correct. And I wanted to kind of get it to you, let you know. And Robert and I were thinking maybe by the time we got this meeting set up that we would have that cost estimate, but unfortunately it just didn't come through. So, but I wanted you to be aware of that. I also wanted you to be aware of the SRF and basically putting a halt to that. And I mean, I just don't see that it's possible right now.
Well, let me ask you, did we finish the lead pipe survey stuff? Is that?
They're still an ongoing process.
Just getting family.
No.
And we're hoping to
They're
have that
working
finished.
it, they're working daily on lead service
Right.
lining.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're hoping to finish that. We're hoping to finish that this year.
So far, so good.
Yes.
see what's going
Yes.
on.
I mean, the thing that bothered me with the GAC and the RO, I mean, you go GAC or you chasing good money after bad. You know, you put in 60 or 80 million, and then
You have to start over.
And then maybe 2 years.
And then you're still paying on what you did on the other.
start over,
Yes.
rock in a hard place, you gotta start over.
And we have,
And that'd be terrible.
well, and we've talked to different systems that have went that route, and, like I said, the majority of the folks that I've talked to are not satisfied with it. They've had to go back and spend more money.
Isn't that where West Morgan is like? They started out with GAC and now that ultimately they've got RO.
When Gadsden started.
Gadsden.
off with G-
Yeah.
Gadsden started off with GAC and then they just bid their RO project.
Right now.
That's where a lot of our cost estimates assumptions came from. That was a $106 million project.
So I'll say this, and then I'll let any of y'all anybody else speak, and then I'll shut up, but we'll get the cost estimates for the pilot study. I think we need to proceed with that as soon as possible. That's gonna allow us a little bit of time to, do a little more evaluation, but it also kind of fits into the timeline, which I've told y'all this every time we meet, and y'all get sick of me hearing me tell you this. But in order to do all of this and to meet all this, we've got to raise rates. So this all, timeline wise, should fit together pretty good, because my plan is to have a proposal in September ready to go that'll have all of our new rate schedule, our new fee schedule, everything that we want to try to incorporate in order to, number one, pay for this PFAS remediation, but number two, continue to meet all of our obligations that we already have in place. So this timeline wise, I think it'll all work out, but we wanted to have a meeting, y'all, to just basically discuss it and say, we're gonna get this price, and then as soon as we get an estimate on the pilot study, I'll call for another meeting and we can get together and vote on it. But timeline wise, I think it's all gonna work out.
Do you have any indication, based on your time in DC, or any idea from our lobbyists, mayor, other people, our representatives and senators, that they are working to engage more funding for the communities? Because if there are water companies and systems that are unable to function and operate, that's a whole different story. There has to be something about that.
I think we're not the only ones that have been and asked that very same question. I'll say this, and this is just, based on the meeting that we were there an hour or whatever, I don't remember the exact length of time, but they kept trying to get us to focus on SRF money. There's not enough SRF money there for us, let alone everyone else in the state that's having to try to meet the same that falls under the same mandate. So I think in my professional opinion, I think SRF is a waste of time.
Well, based on the fact that companies or systems are shutting down, I mean, do you sense that they're taking their foot off the gas on this and they're saying, hey, we gotta slow this down? Are they digging their heels in about 2029?
At this point, they've got their heels in.
We didn't get any indication that they was gonna raise, because here's, if you look at it, it boils down to this: they've got a 4 part per trillion maximum contaminant level, so you have to be below that, but they have a 0 maximum contaminant level goal. The reason we're not already at 0 part per trillion or non-detects is because they can't test that low yet. Once that technology becomes available, they may say,
0.
we're going to 0 now. GAC is irrelevant at that point, and those folks that have GAC in place are going to be going, I wish we'd have borrowed the extra 50 million, 40, whatever it is, depending on the size of your plant. I wish we'd have borrowed that extra money and put RO in, because we're good. So, I mean, and the other thing that it was questioned while we were there, are they gonna extend the date beyond April 2029? In my professional opinion, if anything is done, that is the change that they will make. But who knows if that's gonna be a possibility or not.
I think it's so out, what's going on now in Washington.
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
So
The thing that I was a little bit frustrated with is the folks and there was about 30 to 35 of us in our group with NACOG. And the thing that I was a little bit upset about, and I was warned of this, is the majority, there was 5 or 6 individuals, I think, from EPA, 6, 7 individuals from EPA in there. And the majority of the individuals that were in there were all under the age of 30. There was a couple, I think the director was probably I don't know, I can't remember I've got his card, but, and in my opinion, I don't know that they know what they're talking about.
What's the current regulation? PPM, or is it PPM?
Part PPT, parts per trillion. We don't have
PPT, okay.
Yeah, we don't have a current parts per trillion regulation.
So there is none that
There is
exists.
none. At April of
Okay.
2029 is when they're allowing everybody this window of opportunity.
So they're not lowering it, they're creating.
They went straight to 4 part per trillion.
we're in the class action lawsuit, and I think Tan thinks we could get $5 million. Ewan actually, they sued, they didn't join the suit, and I think they settled for about 30 million. But their problem is they've got a 3M plant right there in the community that's paying good salaries to their citizens, so they're
They're torn.
yeah, they're balanced there. I mean, if we push too hard,
It's Ewan.
that's Ewan, yeah.
I guess Decatur's kind of in the same boat.
West Morgan, East Florence was one of the first.
Yes.
I imagine, because, it's floating
I
down
think
stream.
the scary thing for me that we don't know about, and we can't really do anything about here, there was 2 folks there, from the University of Alabama, and they were the Water Institute. I'd met one before, but there, lots and lots of research going on, and they're talking about PFAS, which I'm sure every single one of us has gotten in our system.
Mm-hmm.
But they're concerned about things like Parkinson's, dementia, autism, because it gets through the brain.
It breaks that brain-blood barrier, is how they described it.
So, I mean, those
I'm
things
not
are
familiar
coming,
with
so
it.
you can just imagine, this is I see it's kind of a firestorm is what's happening, and certainly makes it tough on all of us.
And I would like to stress, because this is gonna be public information, we are nowhere near the levels that some of the folks around us are at.
That's why I wanna make sure everybody understood
Yes.
that our water's
Our water,
Safe,
our
has it
water,
changed?
our water is safe. Nothing has changed. We've not magically. This has not magically happened overnight. This is something that's been in the water for a long period of time, and
Well, I mean, if there are, health issues that can arise, I'm glad they're addressing
sure,
it,
absolutely. And our stance is we want to provide safe, potable drinking water to all of our customers. That's our goal, and we're doing that now. But when the new regs go into effect, we have to have this system in place in order to meet those new regs, and that's basically what this is all about. So
So it might be good for you. I just got an email in the last 2 or 3 days. Somebody had a glass of water they'd gotten out of their faucet and it was brown. So how, when you flush lines or they flush lines, how are citizens notified?
you
So the fire department actually performs fire hydrant testing for ISO ratings, and they put notifications out on the city's website that they're gonna be flushing hydrants. We receive information from the fire department on a daily basis of the areas that they're gonna be flushing, so that water department personnel can be dispatched to that area and on standby, as it were, to ensure that water quality is kept as high as it possibly can be, and to follow in behind the fire department by slowly flushing the fire hydrants and allowing that water time to clear up.
Yeah, they did my street last week, and it was just put on the neighborhood Facebook page, brown water alert, flushing hydrants this week, so.
And we try to post it on the gas and water page as much as possible, but some days we don't get notification until the morning that they're doing it, but we still try to keep up. And like Will said, there's certain sections, neighborhoods, so on and so forth, that they'll alert us to. And so we're on standby, ready to go, because we know we're gonna get calls from it. But it is a necessary thing, in order to meet the ISO ratings so. But yeah, you're exactly right. We'll get brown water calls pretty often. We'll also get milky water calls where air's gotten in lines or something for some reason. So we just try to address those as they come and then work those problems out. So, but anyway, that's pretty much all I had as far as the meeting's concerned. I just wanted you to be aware of where we stood, and our recommendation is that we proceed with the pilot study for RO. And then once we get those results back, which I'm 100% confident that they will be non-detects, then that brings up the other conversation, and we have to make a move on that relatively quick. But like I said, I think all this timeline-wise is going to work out with what our plan is for the new rate.
So Blakey, you gonna need to come back to, once they get a number, or you want him to take it straight to the finance committee, or just bring it straight to the council?
How do you want us to
I don't think
proceed?
we need to move, once you get the numbers.
Well, what I'll do, as quick as Robert provides us, so as he gets that information from the vendor, I'll send another request in that we meet, and then we can hopefully get that knocked out relatively quick and proceed. So we got that handled. As far as the SRF, do y'all need to vote on? I mean, I don't know what we need to do here, but do we need to vote on stopping and not proceeding with borrowing the 22? It's not really 22 and a half, but it's roughly 22 and a half. Do we need to vote on that? And because we'll need to make Siobhan aware, and I can't think of the new guy's name because Eric has left them.
Why don't you wait till you get the numbers? You're not in a rush to do that.
Well, we're not in any you're right. I was trying to think.
I mean, personally, I would think if we were going forward with borrowing money, we'd need to vote on it, but we're not doing anything, so.
Right.
Do we need to have a vote?
So what's-
Doing nothing for it.
Mark, what's our bond rating for water?
I think it's AA minus. I think it's AA minus.
Ricky Minor. If I wrote that down correct, that's the new director of the SRF. through the state, so. So yeah, there's probably no need in voting, we'll,
If we were going forward and borrowing money, then.
Right, sure.
We're not doing anything, so.
and I expect this, the pilot study to be well within reason. I mean, I don't expect them to come back with an elaborate number. I think it'll be well within reason.
And the pilot study, basically you're setting up and testing the water as it goes through the thing and.
Yeah, we're just
It'll
gonna.
show that they
Yes.
just stripped it all out.
And at the same time, when I present that, I just thought about this because you and I had the conversation about treating the reject and NBOT. We'll get a number together on that, and at the same time, so with the RO reject, we mentioned you have the waste stream that you have to treat. We've looked at a technology called NBOT to do that, and we think they will possibly do that for the cost of the analysis. And we'll get a proposal together on that, and I'll present those both at the same time.
And their pilot study can be covered with budgeted funds.
Yes.
Any range, Robert? I know it's a gamble, but
I think if I had a guess right now, probably in the $40,000 to $60,000 range.
and you are
Including the lab
comfortable,
work and
Okay.
everything.
start to finish, that's what you're
Did you say
saying,
something about somewhere along
They
the way?
wanna get in again. They want the opportunity to
Incinerate?
try.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Part
Now,
of the other thing it lets us do, through these pilots, so we've piloted 4 different systems and all of them are a little bit different. Some of them have more pumps than others, higher horsepower, higher pressures, different chemicals. So at the same time, we can evaluate them, because ultimately we'll have to make a decision which manufacturer we wanna go with. Whether we go with 1 or 2, so at the same time, we're looking at the pros and cons of how easy is each one or difficult is each one to operate, and, how much power does each of them use, how much chemicals do they use, what kind of warranties will they offer on the equipment. So the pilot also gives us a lot of that information that we need to be able to jump in design, because unlike a pump, you can't design a plant for 5 different RO manufacturers and bid 5 people. They're all so specific, and you're really gonna have to settle on one and decide that's who we're gonna use, and before you can really get into detailed design.
Yeah.
Everyone is just totally, different layouts, different buildings, different piping arrangements, so it gives us all that information as well.
Got it. Thank you.
And to Robert's point, one of the biggest costs associated with RO is electricity, because you're having to pump that water through there with such large pumps in order, because you're pumping water through a tiny orifice, yeah, if you will. And so you have to force it through there to strip it and remove it. So, like for instance, West Morgan, East Lawrence they call them trains. I believe if I'm correct, they have trains, and each one of those trains has 6 pumps on it. 2 of those 6 pumps are 150 horsepower pumps each, and it costs a lot of money power wise to drive those pumps. Now you mentioned incineration, and incineration is dealing with GAC. One positive way to get rid of PFAS is through incineration. So what you do is that GAC is it acts as a filter, and once it traps so much PFAS, you get breakthrough. What you have to do then is you have to remove the GAC from that chamber. You take it, you incinerate it, you burn all the PFAS off, and you bring the GAC back and you reinstall it and start the process all over again. You do it before you reach breakthrough. They have a period of days.
Seems like we're contaminating another source by doing that. And now we've got,
And all of those regs are gonna come.
it's a matter of time before they shut that down because of air quality, if you go with GAC.
Well, I'm sure, I have a brief working knowledge of how air quality works with the previous position, and they have different methods of capturing that when they incinerate it.
Just moving it around.
But you're exactly right.
And is that not the case too with the water you produce, that we have no use for it either?
Are you talking about the reject?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, the reject, so on an RO process, if you put 10 gallons in, you get 9 clean gallons out, and you have 1 gallon of concentrated water that's got PFAS concentrated in it. And that's where everybody's really focusing on the research, is trying to figure out what's the best thing to do with that. There are currently no economically feasible true destruction technologies out there that separate the carbon fluorine bond, I believe it is, And they're working on that, but, so everybody, for the most part, everybody's using GAC because you cutting that flow down to 10% now, and it's a smaller volume to deal with, smaller amount of GAC. And they can actually take the GAC and regenerate it, and they have, I don't know how that works, to be honest with you, but they have, facilities that are licensed and they've done the technology and are approved to regenerate that carbon and bring it back. How exactly they do that, I can't tell you, but that's pretty common all over the country.
They capture it in some capacity, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so, they're able to actually recycle and regenerate that carbon, and somehow they are. I don't believe if they're moving it around, they're concentrating it down to a point that it can be disposed of into a hazardous, place or something, I'm not sure, but,
And
there's not available technologies out there right now to truly destroy that.
Right.
and that's filters,
Yeah.
that's what you replace.
What they're called?
Yes,
That's what it is.
Thank you for them.
Yeah, I know.
Robert, you correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Edwards asked about the filters on the RO units. There's is it about a 5-year,
I assumed on those, yeah,
about a
I looked
5-year
back,
life?
because we didn't know the other day, and I had assumed in those numbers that the replacement cost on the membrane was 25% of the equipment,
Mhm.
and I put numbers in there to replace them every 5 years.
Mhm.
And we'll get a 5-year warranty on the membranes. There'll probably be a 3-year full warranty, and then it prorates down at year 4 and year 5. So, but I'm confident we can get a 5-year warranty.
So that what you'll give us ultimately, once all that pilot study is done, we'll know maintenance costs, so that
We should have a better
the future of
understanding.
the city can be
Yeah.
saddled with
And,
this.
and Robert has some of those numbers now. He has worked on that proposal. While he's looking at that, the one thing I will say, if you could put a positive spin on this, the one positive to RO, at Wilson Lake, we have the MIAX system, which is we remove TOC with our MIAX system right now. It's a resin-based system, and you remove TOC in order to limit the amount of disinfection byproducts that you create, which is basically all the humic matter in the water mixes with the chlorine, and we have limits to that, 80 and 60 parts per billion, or million, it's parts per billion. Yeah, sometimes I get my PPT and PPB and PPM all mixed up,
Fair.
so we have that MIAX system to reduce the TOC, which in turn reduces the disinfection byproducts. I say all that to say this: if we put RO in, the MIAX system goes away. That's a cost that we do not have to incur anymore. We can hopefully try to use that building that we have out there with that MIAX system. There again, this is a prime example of what I'm trying to speak. We put the MIAX system in 2014
Yes.
because we had to meet a disinfection byproducts maximum contaminant level. And now here we are, roughly 10 years later. We can do away with that process because now something else has taken its place. And so that is one positive to the whole thing, if you can consider that a positive, is we will be able to do, and hopefully we'll be able to retrofit that building and use it in some capacity with our,
Well, it sounds like with the RO system too, you're getting cleaner water.
yes, sir.
You're stripping everything out of it.
Yes,
so
sir.
The water is a lot cleaner than.
And then the other advantage to RO is we're stripping it out, but we do have a mix with Cypress Creek, so we are adding some minerals and stuff back in with Cypress Creek, and so I think, like I said, I think this is the best route for us to go. I think it's gonna cost us a little bit more money up front, but I think it's the best route for us to go.
Very glad we decided to keep the Cypress Creek plant 20 years ago.
Yes. Yeah, that was
Was there a
very.
proposal to get rid of it?
There was discussion as whether to continue upgrading it or just mothball it and just put all the money at Wilson Lake.
Yeah.
So, glad we did.
And I can't imagine running our system without them. I know you can't, because Cypress was down, over the winter with some much needed upgrades, and we just kicked Wilson Lake up and continued on. Otherwise, you couldn't have been down for that.
Redundancy helps.
Yeah, you couldn't have been down for that 3-week period or 4-week period. 21 days or whatever it was. I don't remember the exact
Well, creek water is
time.
just so much cleaner to deal with than river water. That's, this points out.
Mhm. So, anyways, y'all have any questions? we'll,
Anything?
I'm sorry to throw all of it on you, and
Now I'm as depressed as I can get. I don't think there's anything else you can tell me.
that was not the purpose.
Thanks,
At least it's
Chad.
on Wednesday and not on Friday, so.
He's
But,
like Debbie down there.
but I just,
Coming to these meetings.
I'm a planner. I think y'all will learn this about me. I try to, my wife tells me I overplan sometimes, and so I wanted you all to be aware of
Great.
what we've discovered over the last, well, I mean, we've not discovered it, but what we've been researching over the last few months. And I thought this was an appropriate time to, and like I said, Robert and I thought we might have some pricing on the pilot study.
And
at the
we'll
time.
continue to refine these cost estimates. I mean,
Yes, yes.
from the 135 number we started with. That was based on that other project that was bid recently. I had the plans for it. We took those plans and we took some things out that y'all wouldn't need. We added some things in there that we thought you would need. I think I added, some in there for inflation. So, but as we get further into design and the piloting, we'll be able to start refining that number down and getting hopefully.
And hopefully
more
we will
confident.
not be at the 135 million mark. Hopefully we will be.
We're gonna try to repurpose some things out
Be
there.
great to knock the 100 million part off.
Ain't gonna happen.
Well, that's not gonna happen, but I mean, we can all
That'd be great.
So, yeah, I agree with you 100%, so. All right, we'll get those numbers, and as soon as we have all that, I'll request another meeting, and then we can meet then, and we can vote on to proceed or not to proceed.
All right.
Anybody got anything
I guess we adjourn then. Thank you, sir.
else? I appreciate it
That's
very
what-
much.
That's what
Thank y'all.
Gadsden's need.